Hey there, I'm the Mad Catster, and am I glad to see you here. What a way to start out the new year, but with one further ace scandal that nobody has really talked about, but I've got all the receipts and I'm going to shed light on this particular scam. It's pretty outraging, so let's get into it. First, I want to start by saying Happy New Year. My voice is almost 100% normal again. I'm glad to see you guys here. I hope 2022 gets off to a really good start. I hope we see much better things and much more prosperous and happy and healthy times ahead of us. So if you stay tuned, at the end of the video, I'm going to introduce you to Amelie. She's another one of the cats you haven't met yet. That'll be at the end. But I want to talk to you about one particular, I'll say alleged scam, although you can be your judge for yourself after I tell you all of the information. I've got all the receipts, so I'll show you all the documentation, and then you make up your own mind. But in my opinion, this looks like a scam to me. So many of you probably are aware that back in the early days of the pandemic, Congress had passed some legislation to provide different types of relief for people and businesses who were struggling, the unemployment extensions, but there was also something called the Paycheck Protection Program. And what that was a loan program, a zero interest loan program by the government to businesses who were genuinely affected by the pandemic and were in danger of either going out of business or laying off employees because of it. And what the government did was the Small Business Administration made these zero interest loans to businesses who needed the help so that they could continue to pay their employees and stay in business. And those loans would be 100% forgivable, which means it really becomes free money if they maintained their employment levels for a certain period of time after the loan was made. So anyways, one of the companies, ta-da, here's the smoking gun, was Ace Hat Collection, which a lot of you probably know is what the Ace family's main corporation is called. It's called Ace Hat Collection. It's based out of Palmdale, California, is what it says on their incorporation papers. You can see right here. Austin and Catherine, whose real name is Dolores Catherine, and Austin's mother are all listed as officers, and you can see that here as well. So Ace Hat Collection is basically like the main company where they sell their merchandise, and all the stuff that they do with YouTube is sort of under Ace Hat Collection. They also own a couple of other enterprises. One business is Simply Greatness Productions, which is the company Austin formed and used to put on that failed Social Gloves event. So that's one business they have. They also have Catherine's 1212 Gateway, which is her cosmetics business. And they had a venture called Silly Juice, which kind of failed. It was actually through Langer's, which is a big juice company in California. But they didn't really own that. They just sort of had an interest in it, but they weren't controlling. Langer's controlled that brand. So they have a bunch of different enterprises going on. Now, for their Ace Hat Collection, they own a condominium, a corporate condominium, not a residential condominium. For their business, I'd probably like to house the merchandise, etc. I think they've even shown the office in some of their videos, and it doesn't look like anybody really works there. It's just sort of where they go to fulfill merchandise. And they bought that corporate condo back in 2019 for $1,050,000, and Catherine and Austin are the two sole owners of that property. So let's get to the heart of this story. So Catherine and Austin applied for one of these Paycheck Protection loans. So they applied for the loan through Ace Hat Collection. As you can see, I'm going to put the document up here. You can see that they got a loan for $108,332. It was approved on May 1st, 2020. It was through JP Morgan Chase Bank, which is an American financial institution, which is insured by the FDIC. And what the Brooms stated on their application was they were going to use $81,249 of the loan for payroll. They were going to use $7,083 for utilities. Obviously not gas, because, they didn't have any gas. Haha. They were going to use $20,000 for mortgage interest. Isn't that a kicker? And they listed their industry as internet publishing and broadcasting and web search portals. They also stated that they were self-employed, which is true. And they claimed that there were 7 jobs. Now, I don't know who the 7 jobs are. Is it the parents and the 3 kids, plus the cook and the maid and the chauffeur, or who is it? I'm sure they have, like an assistant, but you don't ever really see any staff. I've seen them go visit that office in one of their videos, and it didn't look like there's anybody there. So it's not like they have this full-time staff running their merch business. But anyways, the point of this is not that they weren't entitled to apply for a loan, because self-employed, even YouTubers can apply for those loans from what I understand from what I read about the requirement. However, the whole point of these loans was to help businesses who were struggling who were in danger of going out of business because of the pandemic, with circumstances beyond their control that adversely affected their business. Now, the Ace family and their channel, which is their main source of income through the Ace Hat collection, I looked online, and from the time of the start of the pandemic up till the present day, they never had a dip, really significant dip in number of views on their videos or number of subscribers. And you can see, I'm going to put up two charts here, and you can see this is from socialblade.com, which follows all the different YouTuber accounts and channels and shows what their stats are. So according to Social Blade, from early 2019 through the end of 2021, you can see here total subscribers for the Ace family is on an upward trajectory. It sort of levels out in the end of 2020 and into 2021, but they never really lose any subscribers. And during the pandemic, it looks like their subscribers were going up. Also, if you look at total video views from the same period, it's basically the same thing. There's a small dip in about March or so, but then it rebounds again right away and continues again with an upward trajectory through the end of 2021. So it's safe to assume that based on these statistics, they never really suffered a huge change in their income. They might have had a little ding at one point, but it looks like they continued to maintain their subscriber level and their video views. So one would assume that their YouTube ad income would have stayed about the same or increased over that period. So my question is, where's the adverse consequences of the pandemic for the Ace family based on these statistics? It's ridiculous. Clearly, they haven't seemed to be suffering. If you look, they're jet skiing around their pool. They're moving into and renting a new house. And we know now that it's rented based on an interview, which I actually am posting today as well. Another video that sort of talks about some other stuff and updates the lawsuit. So be sure to check that out. But, they just posted their Christmas video where they are flexing, showing that they've given their small children their 1-year-old, a laptop computer.
Computer? Your very own computer?
Their kids got iPhones.
Your own phone now?
And they've got all these lavish gifts, so they just continue to flex and show they're spending. So clearly, they don't show any signs that the pandemic has impacted them whatsoever. My question is then, how did they get this loan? Well, the problem is there wasn't a lot of vetting and oversight on these loans. So a lot of it was sort of Scout's honor. Everybody knows McBrooms don't have a whole lot of honor. And basically, unless you get caught, there are no consequences. If you get approved, you get the loan. Nobody's coming checking and knocking on your door to see where did you spend that money. So, I don't know what they did with the money. Well, we know they got foreclosed. So clearly they didn't spend that $20,000 they put towards mortgage interest, I wouldn't think, based on the circumstances. So where did that money go? What payrolls affected? If they're still bringing in money at levels that they had before the pandemic, all through the pandemic, where is the suffering? Where I live, there were a lot of small businesses that went out of business. Yes, those loans really did help, and I'm certainly not knocking the loans because they were a godsend to a lot of businesses. But there are a lot of small businesses. There's shops and restaurants in my area that, despite everything, they went out of business because they just couldn't make it. A lot of these places live from month to month, and they rely on a steady stream of income, and even with assistance, it wasn't enough to save them. So there are a lot of people, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who didn't get loans, who wanted a loan to try to legitimately save their business, and yet here we are subsidizing the McBrooms, the millionaire welfare recipients, who are chomping at the government bread box with their hand out, taking this money, which they're never going to have to pay back, which they didn't have to pay any interest on, and they're using it for God knows what, to sustain this lavish, flexing lifestyle of theirs. And it just outrages me that so many people really suffered, and yet here are the McBrooms taking cash that should have been allocated to businesses that really needed it. Shame on you. Shame on you. They have no shame. That's the problem. And I'm just disgusted, frankly. Tell me in the comments, what do you think? Do you think that they legitimately should have gotten this loan? And I wish that somebody would go and audit them and find out exactly where this money was spent, because I don't believe, in my opinion, that it was spent the way it was supposed to be spent. And I certainly don't believe that they suffered. I'd like to see their corporate income tax returns. We really won't know unless somebody leaks their tax return. But I suspect based on the figures I've seen, that they did not suffer a huge setback and they were not terribly adversely affected by the pandemic. Therefore, in my opinion, should not have received one of these government-backed loans that you and I pay for out of our taxes so that the McBrooms can give their kids iPhones and laptop computers. I also want to show you another document. I don't know if any of you, I'm sure some of you have heard of Dun & Bradstreet. It's been around forever. It's a really old company. Basically, they are like the gold standard for business statistics and information. So I looked up Ace Hat Collection. Take a look at this with me. So it says that the Ace Hat Collection is, I don't know where they got this from, Wildomar, California, which we know that they're Palmdale according to everything that they list for their corporation. It says that they're part of the electronic shopping and mail order houses industry, which is bizarre. I don't know. They probably don't have a specific category for YouTube content creators, so that's probably the closest they could get. I don't know. Ace Hat Collection says has two total employees across all of its locations, and that they generate about $3.5 million in sales every year. The key principal is Austin McKinley McBroom. Catherine, it says Dolores Catherine McBroom, Secretary, Austin McKinley McBroom, Chief Executive Officer. It started in 2016, was incorporated in 2017, and again, 2 employees across all sites. So 2 employees, Catherine and Austin, who clearly have money coming in, and yet somehow they desperately needed help from the government for some free money to keep their YouTube channel afloat. I mean, really? With all the followers that they haven't really seen a huge impact from all of these scandals. So I don't know where they get off thinking that they deserved a loan free of charge from the federal government. Essentially, it's a welfare handout to them. Now, the last thing I want to draw your attention to is a copy. It's not a copy of their application. And again, I put in a Freedom of Information Act request to the Small Business Administration. Because these are government-backed loans, technically you should be able to get access to any information concerning them. So I've requested a copy of the McBroom's actual application. We know the information that they provided in terms of how they were going to spend the money and what they needed, but I don't know exactly what the rest of the information says. So I was curious to see. So I've put in a request. We'll see if the Small Business Administration gives it to me or if they claim that the information is confidential. I don't know, but I'll let you know. If they do approve it, I'll certainly tell you about it. But anyways, take a look at this application. Okay, this is a blank application. So it's a Paycheck Protection Program borrower application form. There's a couple of things I want to draw your attention to I've highlighted here. One of the questions, question number 3 on this application says, is the applicant or any owner of the applicant an owner of any other business or have common management with any other business? I was reading about the qualifications through the Small Business Administration where it looked like you couldn't have multiple business interests when applying for one of these loans. We know for a fact that the McBrooms own multiple businesses. We know from the records that both Austin and Catherine are being sued under their business entity names. We know that there's a company suing 1212 Gateway for non-payment of bills, of course. And then we know that Austin and LiveX Live are engaged in litigation against each other for social gloves. And that's where Simply Greatness Productions name comes up again. So we know, and I've looked, I've seen the incorporation papers for both of those companies and it names the McBrooms. So we know that they've got multiple business interests. So right there, I'll be interested to see if I ever get the application, what their answer to that question was. This is even more important though. On the application, at the end of the application, there's a couple of things. It says, by signing below, you make the following representation, authorization, and certification. It says one of the things they certify, so this is basically under penalties of perjury when you sign one of these government documents, says the applicant is eligible to receive a loan under the rules in effect at the time the application is submitted. There was no oversight. They didn't check up to see if you really were suffering from the pandemic. No questions asked. But they should not have, under a penalty of perjury, certified that they were eligible to receive a loan because, like I said and like I just showed you, the figures don't show that they had any adverse impact from the pandemic on their YouTube channel, which is their main source of income. So why on earth should they be getting a loan, and why should they be certifying to the federal government that they're qualified to get a loan when it doesn't look like the pandemic had much of an impact on their business at all? Another certification is you certify that all the loan proceeds will be used only for business-related purposes, as specified in the loan application and consistent with the Paycheck Protection Program rule. So I'd be interested to see where that money went, because I doubt that 20 grand went to mortgage interest, because we know they got foreclosed on. We know they weren't paying their mortgage during that time period. So the question is, what did they use that money for? Who did they pay? Did they pay their cook? Because if they paid their cook or they paid any of their household staff, those aren't business employees. They work for the McBrooms personally. They shouldn't be getting paid. And not only that, the whole larger issue is they shouldn't have gotten the loan in the first place. No matter how they spent it, they shouldn't have gotten the loan, in my opinion. Now, they have to certify that they're not engaged in any activity that is illegal under federal, state, or local law, which means any law, whether it's your city or your state or the country. You can't be engaged in any illegal activity. We know from the documentation that the Ace family was illegally living in their house. They were committing a crime by living in that house. They did not, as they scream on and on again, they do not have a certificate of occupancy. No one should have been living in that house.
We never got a certificate of occupancy. We are not legally able to be occupants in our home.
They stated on their mortgage application that they would not live in the house and it would not be used for residential purposes. So they've clearly broken the law. So there, by certifying that they weren't engaged in any illegal activity under federal, state, or local law, they were lying because they were engaged in illegal activity. The next thing says that they certify in good faith. So this is where the honor system comes in. In good faith, all of the below. One is current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of the applicant. Well, again, we see the figures. They didn't suffer from video views or from subscribers, so their ad income must have stayed pretty consistent through the pandemic, so they can't have truthfully answered that economic uncertainty made the loan request necessary. Second is, the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll or make mortgage interest payments and utility payments. Again, they had no gas, so I don't know what they paid, cable and electric with it. They also state that they understand that if the funds are knowingly used for unauthorized purposes, the federal government may hold me legally liable, such as for charges of fraud. And then the last thing that I highlight here is, I understand that knowingly making a false statement to obtain a guaranteed loan from SBA is punishable under the law, including, and it gives the statute, by imprisonment of not more than 5 years and or a fine of up to $250,000. Under a different statute, also imprisonment of not more than 2 years or a fine of more than $5,000. And if submitted to a federally insured institution, which JP Morgan Chase is a federally insured institution under the Federal Deposit Insurance Company, which guarantees your deposits. If the bank fails and you have money in the bank, that the government will guarantee that you'll get your money back. If it's submitted to a federally insured institution, you're subject to imprisonment of not more than 30 years and or a fine of not more than $1 million. You be the judge. Tell me in the comments, what do you think? Do you think they legitimately deserved and obtained this loan? Do you think that they did not tell the truth on their application? Do you think they used it for the purposes that it was intended for or not? And what do you think happened to the money? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. Have a happy, healthy new year. I will see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, and take care. So this is Amelie. Amelie is my oldest cat, I believe. She's gotten quite up in the years, and I can't remember now. I think she's 17. She actually has dementia. Believe it or not, cats do get it. And not that she like forgets who I am or anything, but she gets very disoriented, and she'll go and sit in the dining room. And here comes Edith. She'll go sit in the, see, they don't like it when someone else has the spotlight, but she'll go and sit in the dining room and cry because she thinks it's time to eat, even if it's like late at night. So I take her to bed with me at night, and she curls up next to me, and she actually sleeps through the whole night. So that's a godsend. So she doesn't do any, they call it sundowning during the night. But I'm going to put her down because she's a little antsy. But she had a sister, Amelie, who died last year, unfortunately. And they were actual sisters. They looked almost identical except for the color on the face. Amelie's face has the tabby cat pattern on her face, but Melanie's face was all white except for like a little spot. And she was a sweet cat. They were like night and day. This one, when she was younger, was a hellion. She was a pain in the ass, but she's always been a sweet cat. She's never been a bad cat. But Melanie, the sister, was very timid and shy and kind of deferential to her sister, who was a very pushy cat. But she slowed down considerably. They were given up when they were 6 years old by somebody who just couldn't be bothered anymore. You know, there's always a lame excuse. Oh, move to a new apartment. It's like, you know what? If I had a cat for 6 years, they're like my kids. I would not move to a place that didn't allow pets. So it just goes to show you what kind of a person that is. It can so easily give up something that they've raised for 6 years and not think twice about it. So, but she's been a good cat. She's had a good long life. She's been very healthy. And, you know, I know she's kind of her days are kind of numbered, but, you know, while she's here, I love her and her health is still good. So hopefully she'll live for a few more years and really be an old cat. But that's Amelie. And again, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.
We never got a certificate of occupancy. We are not legally able to be occupants in our home.